Well, everybody, welcome back to Just Keep Parenting. I'm having a Dory moment today. So, last day of school was yesterday and getting ready for some conferences. So, here we go. Here we go with Just Keep Parenting. I've been sick and been gone out of town. So, anyway, for those of you who might just be joining us, we're almost finished with the book Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline: The 7 Basic Skills for Turning Conflict into Cooperation. So today we've been talking about how to help kids, how to reflect back what they're feeling, right? So, and we do a pretty good job of it as adults, minus one emotion, right? You can imagine what that emotion might be. We're going to talk about it today. But we've been talking about the positive intent, because some of us can be fairly negative in our intent with children in assuming that we know what they're feeling and how they're feeling, right? And so today we're going to finish off with anger, which is the most difficult emotion to reflect, right? We see sadness, right, in their posture, in tears, in pouting, in withdrawal. We see happiness with smiles and hugs and joyful shouts, right? And we see fear sometimes manifested in nail biting, fidgeting, big eyes, right? But anger, right, it makes itself known through kicking, hitting, spitting, and sometimes swearing, right? Behaviors that tend to scare us as adults, right? So, empathy for anger doesn't happen very often, right? Because it puts us into our brainstem, and then we're there with them trying to get them to stop what they're doing, right? So paradoxically, empathy is the best skill to help children gain control over anger emotions and behaviors. But we don't reflect it very well because it makes us fearful, right? So if we could reflect anger, right, it would be so helpful to our society, to our classrooms, to our families, but it's so hard for us to do. So I want to tackle that today and talk about how we can help children help themselves when we, as their caregivers, as their teachers, as their parents, help them as we reflect anger, right? So when a baby smiles, what do? We smile back, we coo, we coddle, right? When a pouty face is shown, we lower our lips. But we respond to anger in a different emotion. We don't respond in anger, right? The special treatment of anger becomes skewed as the children get older, right? Research tells us that parents usually ignore angry girls and angry boys are lavished with bribes, threats, and spanking. So if we want children, right, to label and express and control their emotions, we as parents, right, have to behave differently for that. Girls learn that when their anger is ignored, they're not entitled to feel anger. So what happens? We subvert it, right? And as adults, this anger surfaces in women. It comes out as nagging, as criticism, and as depression. And so because they're denied that full emotional range, girls fail to develop a full self-awareness by not pinpointing what they want and expressing their desires. Well, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. Girls are pretty good at that, right? And that research tells us is because we were ignored when we got angry. We didn't know how to work through that, right? So on the other hand, boys who received undue attention, right, when they're angry, often grow up to be violent men. Bribery grows into extortion. Threats become stalking, and spanking leads to battering, right? So if we could start to help them by reflecting back that anger, right, what it looks like, then would research show something different? I'm hoping so. I'm crossing my fingers and hoping so, right? So when kids say things like, "You're stupid," right? What we can reflect back is, "You seem frustrated with me," right? When they say, "I hate you," I have been told that more than once, right? As a teacher, "You seem angry with me," right? You're not, we don't say we're not angry. You're not angry. You're angry with me, but we say you seem, right? You seem angry with me. He's a jerk. You seem irritated with your brother, right? So as we can try to, there again, reflect back what they're saying, right? Then that there again gives them, oh, wait a minute, is that what I'm saying? Is that, they're in their brainstem. Remember, we don't want to go in our brainstem. We have to take care of us first. What are we feeling, right? Because a temper tantrum is just uncontrolled. It's an uncontrolled outburst of anger, right? And it usually arises from a child's or adult's thwarted efforts to control a situation. So we have tantrums as adults, right? So what we're saying when we have that tantrum is, I've tried desperately to make the world go my way. Now I'm so frazzled, I can barely speak, right? I feel terrified, I feel helpless, and I feel powerless. So what do? I act out. Think back to your last tantrum as an adult. Yes, we have them. We know we have them, right? But how would it have felt to have somebody stay calm and assure your safety and those around you, right? So as caregivers, right, to children, we need to help them figure out how to move through their rage without feeling abandoned. You're angry? Go to your bedroom. You're angry? Go to timeout, right? So we're abandoning them rather than helping them to move through that. So having that calm adult close at hand, right, creates safety, and then their anger and their rage is powerless. So when their anger and their rage is powerless, it reduces the chance of future tantrums. Wahoo, right? The problem is sometimes when they're tantruming, we want to tantrum, right? And that's what this book is all about, right? Is helping yourself first so that we can help them. So as we help them move through the tantrum, we can teach them better ways to cope, right? And we have to go back to what's developmentally appropriate. So at 15 months, we know that 15-month-old children are going to have tantrums because they have a battle going on between independence and dependence, right? And so that's what's happening. That's a stage that they'll go through, right? Toddlers, same thing. My way or the grown-up's way, right? I've got this battle going on between in my little self, right? Sometimes it resurfaces as in adolescence and sometimes in our 40s, right? And so most parents, we blame ourselves, right, for the tantrums, when in actuality, tantrums are a part of this inner struggle. That's part of their development, right? Parents' actions can surely trigger a tantrum, but they're not the root cause, right? The other thing is sometimes certain adult practices encourage tantrums. And we've talked about this before in past videos. But if we're inconsistent with our children, if our expectations are too high, or we have undue strictness or overprotectiveness, right, the helicoptering and overindulgence, that can sometimes trigger tantrums, right? So we have to remember that we have to put our oxygen mask on first, right? If we shift our focus from stopping the tantrum, that's what we want to have happen, to helping the child move through the tantrum by reflecting back what we see, feel, and hear. There's a great little vignette that the author uses, and she says, Melissa, age 6, hated anything that itched. She especially disliked tags in clothing. One frantic morning, Melissa and her mother, Bobby Jo, found themselves in a power struggle after power struggle. As the time for the carpool to arrive was approaching, Bobby Jo pulled out a new t-shirt and said, "Put this on, you need to hurry." Melissa took the shirt, but the minute she saw the tag, she went into a tirade. In an attempt to move the child out of the house in time, Bobby Jo located some scissors and headed toward Melissa to remove the tag. Upon seeing the scissors, Melissa said, "I can cut it out myself," and dashed off on a fruitless search for her own small scissors. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking and the carpool was due, so Bobby Jo grabbed the shirt, clipped the tag. Right? Which is what we do. We want to help. We want to hurry. Upon seeing that, Melissa totally lost it. She collapsed to the floor, screaming and thrashing about. Bobby Jo looked at her child and thought, "I don't like you very much this morning." She resisted the temptation to feel guilty for that thought and remembered, discipline yourself first and the child second. Put on your mask first and the child second. She took several deep breaths and told herself, this moment is as it is. She can't change it. Relax and solve the problem. She started describing what she saw. Melissa, your arms are going like this, she demonstrated. Melissa continued flailing her arms and hollering. Bobby Joe ignored the hollering and focused on her body. Your face is scrunched up. Bobby Joe made her face look as much like Melissa's as possible. Melissa looked up and made eye contact with her mother. First sign, right? Bobby Joe continued to breathe and knew she was starting to reach her daughter and said, your whole body is telling me you feel angry. Melissa said, pouting, I wanted to cut the tag. Mom recognized her daughter's return to an almost rational state and said, you wanted to cut it, but I cut it. Melissa crossed her arms and her body began to tense up again. Bobby Joe responded, you were so disappointed and frustrated that it was just too much to bear. This has been a rough morning for the both of us. Melissa began to sob and crawled into her mom's lap. Bobby Joe rocked her gently and they stayed connected until the carpool arrived. Right? So in this story, Bobby Joe kept herself calm enough to help the child move through the tantrum. And I love the example, right? It happens all the time in the lab school. When the kids are so upset, and I'll say to them, you look so frustrated right now because your arms are flailing and you're looking at this and you've got this going on. I said, it must have been really scary and it must have scared you, or you must have gotten really angry about it, right? Let's go inside and get some boo-boo cream. Let's go get some nervous cream, whatever the situation calls for. But I'm just amazed. I had a little girl who said to me, when I said, how do you make yourself feel better, right? We were talking about tools. And the little girl said, well, I count to 10, I take a deep breath, and I name the emotion. I was like wide-eyed, right? I'm like, maybe you could share that with the rest of the kids today when we talk about it. And she said, I'd love to. So she came up and she talked about it and she said, I always count to 10 when I'm angry or when I'm frustrated or when I'm sad. And she said, then I take a deep breath because that helps me. And then I named the emotion. And I said, what does that mean? And she told the kids, well, sometimes I get mad and sometimes I get annoyed at my sister. Sometimes I get frustrated. So she's been having these talks with her parents at home. And I was just like, yes, right? So if we can do that, right, then if we can reflect back what we see, what we feel, and what we hear, then we're going to help these kids be able to work through their tantrum and not just insist that it stop, right? Then we're going to be able to have less tantrums, wahoo, in our life if we can take time at the beginning to reflect back what we hear, see, and feel. Good luck this week, everybody. Just keep parenting. Thanks for joining. Pass it along if you've got somebody who's struggling with parenting. We all do at some point in our life. Thanks so much.